Welcome everyone to my presentation on spending plans, a roadmap to financial success. My name is George Dillman, and I'm the Consumer Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. So according to Investopedia, a personal spending plan, aka a budget, for those for those older folks like me who still refer to them as budgets, we're talking about spending plans or budgeting. According to Investopedia, a personal spending plan helps you determine your cash flow. It can help you understand how you earn and spend your money. When paired with a financial goals worksheet, the personal spending plan can be used to create a roadmap for monitoring your spending and helping you achieve your financial goals. In a nutshell, what we're talking about here is we're talking about what's coming in versus what's going out. And to make sure that we have more coming in, basic as the old saying goes, more coming in the door than what's going out the door. And if we don't, we certainly need to turn that around. But to make sure we have more coming in than what's going out with enough additional cash in between that we can use to put towards these goals, these financial goals that we're going to be looking at creating, and what we're going to and which we're going to be talking about shortly. Another way to put it is we're looking at living below our means. And I don't mean to make a negative thing about it. A lot of people hear that living below my means or living below our means, and oh gee, so I need to start eating hot dogs and baked beans 5 times a week or whatever. And I really no, we don't want to make a negative thing out of it. Um, and in fact, a lot of people out there with money, millionaires who you wouldn't even know are millionaires that live below their means. Millionaires and even billionaires. Gentleman that I like to use as an example all the time is a gentleman that we all know by the name of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett. This is a gentleman who, just about $100 billion in his bank account. This is a gentleman that still lives in the same house that he bought back in the 1950s, long before he had $100 billion in his bank account. Now, bigger than any house I'm ever going to live in. But for what he has now, for the money that he has now, he could certainly be living in something much bigger, much grander. But he says, why do I need it? I'm happy with the house that I have. I don't need anything bigger, gaudier, or whatever. A gentleman I've read several times who, one of his favorite restaurants that he likes to go out to is McDonald's. And rumor has it that when he goes there, he uses coupons. $100 billion in the bank account, but he gets the coupons in the mail like we do, and he says, "Why not use them? Right? Why not, save the money if I have the coupon?" I recently found out over the last 6 to 8 months, he never buys a new car. He always buys a car that's a couple years old. He knows, like a lot of other people, how much value a car loses, in the first couple years that you own it. There's an old saying, I think a lot of us know this, that the minute you drive a brand new car off the dealership lot, all of a sudden it's now a used car, and it automatically decreases a couple $1,000s in value because it's now classified as a used car. He realizes this, and again, $100 billion in the bank account, but he practices, again, living below his means, as well as a lot of other people out there with money, people that you wouldn't even know had millions of dollars in the bank account because they live in, I'm going to use the finger quotes here, normal houses, driving normal cars, living normal lives. And again, to use another old saying, how do you think they got so many millions in the bank account? So this is what we're looking at, living below our means. A lot of people live to their means. A lot of us out there living to our means, living, every dollar that's coming in, there's a dollar going out. We're living paycheck to paycheck, and not just people, making $10, $12 an hour. We're talking people making six figures a year, $100,000 a year or more, that are living paycheck to paycheck. Again, every dollar that's coming in, there's a dollar going out. They're living to their means. And unfortunately, there are some of us that are living above our means. and maybe more than some of us, living above our means. Maybe for every dollar that's coming in, there might be $1.25 or $1.50 going out. And certainly in that respect, we really do need to turn things around, because if we go further and further and further into debt, we know where we're headed. So that's what we're looking at with this presentation, with the spending plan, AKA the budgets. How can we turn that around and create additional cash that we can set money aside ahead of time for things that we're looking to purchase, as opposed to going further and further and further into debt to pay for things, aka those plastic cards that we constantly put things on because we have to have this, we have to have that, and we need it now. So that's what we're looking at. So this is what we're covering today: goal setting, cash flow and tracking expenses, creating the plan, and monitoring/adjusting that plan as needed. So we're looking at setting SMART goals. Again, we're looking at making sure we have more coming in than what's going out, with enough cash in between to cover those SMART goals that we're looking to create. Two things that I'll probably bring up several times during this presentation is an emergency fund and a long-term retirement fund. 45 experts say 45 to 50% of Americans retire with nothing to fall back on but a Social Security check. And one of the reasons they do is because when emergencies come up that they need to cover to pay for things, they don't have anything in a short-term fund, an emergency fund, to pay for it, and a lot of times they might end up dipping into some type of retirement account they have in order to pay for it. So one thing that we could be looking at with our SMART goals is where can we free up enough additional funds to put money aside into a short-term fund or an emergency fund, and where can we find additional funds to put aside to put into a long-term retirement fund. And then other goals that we're looking to reach, maybe a down payment on a house, money for that new or maybe new used car, a family vacation, a smartphone, a new smartphone, somebody who likes to purchase a new or maybe a newer smartphone every 3 to 5 years. This is the year that I'm going to replace my smartphone. I'm looking at about paying $300 for that. I don't want to slap something on a credit card or slap something else on a credit card. What can I do? I can create a SMART goal. And it doesn't, and SMART goals, whatever the SMART goal is, doesn't have to be anything long and drawn out. Something as simple as the example down at the bottom there, I will save $300 in 6 months for a new smartphone. Now we're looking at SMART goals. We're breaking it down. We're looking at goals, and that's where SMART comes from. Goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and have a time frame to it. $300, I think that is a specific number. I think we could measure that. Time frame, 6 months, it has a time frame to it. Attainable and realistic, that's going to be up to us. And of course it depends on what the goal is. If I'm looking to save up for a brand new top of the line Rolex watch at $25,000 over the next 6 months, and I'm making $10 an hour in my job, I'm being a little silly, but maybe a little unrealistic. And I think you know where I'm going with that. So, attainable and realistic, that's going to be up to us. And in a situation like this, where we can come up with that additional $50, and I'm looking at maybe say $50 a month over the next 6 months that I set aside, so I have that $300 at the end of the 6 months, where I come up with that additional $50 a month to put aside for that, as well as additional funds to cover other SMART goals that I'm looking to create. So when we're looking at goals or looking at SMART goals, we're looking at basically three types: short-term goals, mid-range goals, and long-term goals. A short-term goal might be that new smartphone in 6 months that I'm looking to set funds aside for. Maybe that family vacation. Husband and wife, 2 kids, they love to go on that family vacation every year down at the shore. Maybe that trip, they know that trip is going to cost them somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200 every year. Hey, honey, how about, rather than slapping it on the credit card when it comes time to pay for it and then spending the next year paying off that credit card with that high interest rate. How about if over the course of the year we see where we can come up with $100 a month to set aside, so we have $1,200 to cover maybe at least most of that family vacation the following year. Maybe we set up a vacation fund at with our local bank, and we put those funds into that vacation fund once a month. Same thing with those end of year holiday funds. Every year people spend, in some cases, well over $1,000 at those end of year holidays. And when I say end of year holidays, I'm talking about Thanksgiving, New Year's, and whatever holiday we celebrate in between. Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever holiday we celebrate in between, and we're buying gifts and preparing meals and going out for dinners, things like that. So again, same thing. If we spend about $1,000 every year, rather than slapping that on the credit card and paying. I've read an article where those end of year holiday bills that we get, some people take up to 6 or 7 months over the course of the next 6 or 7 months to pay those off. Again, with those high interest rates, a lot of us have on the credit cards. And guess what? Not much longer after we pay them off, we're gearing up for the next year. So can we set those funds aside over the course of the year? Where can we come up with those additional funds? Again, maybe we set up a holiday fund at our local bank. It used to be called a Christmas fund, but maybe a holiday fund that we could set that money aside over the course of the year. Mid-range goals might maybe that new or newer car. Maybe we get a newer car every 3 to 5 years, and where do we come up with the additional funds over the next 3 to 5 years we can set aside so we can buy at least most of the car? Maybe put some of it on account, so to speak, but come up with at least most, if not all, of the money for our newer used car. Down payment on a house. Couple that are looking to buy their first house or maybe our next house, and we know how much we're looking to spend. We need to come up with 20% or at least 20% down, if not more, to over the next 3 to 5 years. Where do we come up with that money and set that money aside? And then, of course, long-term goals, education, and I like to key in on retirement. As I said earlier, 45 to 50% of Americans retire with nothing else to fall back on but a Social Security check. We don't want to be one of them. And we don't need much, especially those of us that are younger. Time is on our side, and we start investing. Even if we're putting aside $20 to $30 a paycheck into some type of a long-term investment account, with that compound interest, after 30, 35, 40 years, that'll add up to something. So we really don't need much, especially if we have time on our side. And if we're closer to retirement, then we are going to have to put additional funds in there to get something substantial to have on top of our Social Security when we do retire. So short-term, mid-range, and long-term goals. And now we're looking, where do we come up with those additional funds to cover those goals we're looking to cover? So we're looking at cash flow. We're looking at cash flow coming in versus what's going out. Cash flow coming in, of course, is income. Anything coming into the household anything that's bringing money into the household, whether it's a full-time, part-time job, some type of a retirement, a pension, Social Security, whatever total. Maybe we, husband and wife, we have an older family member living with us. So we're keeping an eye. Aunt Edna moved in with us, and she's getting up in age. We want to keep an eye on her. She's paying us room and board. She's paying us X number of dollars. We're going to count that as well. Everything total that's coming in to the coffers, so to speak, versus cash flow going out in the form of expenses, right? The money that's going out the door, money that's coming in the door, money that's going out the door. And when we look at expenses, we want to look at two different types of expenses. So basically two different types of expenses: fixed expenses and variable expenses. Variable expenses are those expenses that are going to vary, right? Whether they vary naturally or we make them vary. And here's the example that I use: the heating bill in the wintertime. You have a winter that's unseasonably warm, and you're not running the heat as much, and that heating bill is going to be lower. Well, that's a natural variation, right? Determined by the weather outside. or we make it vary. Husband and wife, one of them goes to the other one and says, "Hey, honey, I realize that if we lowered our thermostat 5 degrees in the winter time, we'd save ourselves X number of dollars by lowering it 5 degrees, and I think it would still be comfortable in the house if we did that." So a variation. So now we're making that vary. We're making that variable expense vary by making that change ourselves, and that's what we do with a lot of things, such as groceries, entertainment, other things that can and do vary. So variable expenses, things that we can change if we want to. We could free up additional cash versus fixed expenses. Expenses we really can't do it, such as mortgage, rent, car payments, insurance. Expenses we really can't do anything about. Or can we? Here's a question. Could fixed expenses also be variable? And here's our example of fixed expenses, right? Not all inclusive, of course. But if I rent an apartment or a home, can I shop around for a better rate? Now, unless I'm tied into a long-term lease, or lease for the next year, 2 years, or some type of a long-term lease, then maybe not. But if I'm not tied into any type of a lease, could I shop around? Maybe I could find a place that's just as nice, just the same size, just as nice, maybe even better, uh, at a better price. So rent, insurance, auto insurance. I shop around every 3 to 5 years. I shop around for auto insurance, and I usually save myself a good chunk of money because the starter rates, for a lot of these insurance companies, the starter rates aren't the same as what you pay. You notice normally those insurance rates creep up over the years. And the last time I shopped around for auto insurance, I think I saved myself $450 a year by switching to another comparable insurance company at a better at a better rate. So the whole point to that is when it comes to and I'm going to use the finger quotes again, fixed expenses. Sometimes we don't want to discount them. Is this something that we can take a look at? If I'm able to move into another apartment, if I rent and I'm able to move into another apartment or another house and save myself $150 a month, I've just freed up $150 a month that I could be using. Could 50 of that be put towards that new phone that I want in 6 months? Could 50 of that could be put towards beefing up my emergency fund, and could 50 be set aside for my long-term retirement fund or whatever else I'm looking to set funds aside for? So fixed and variable. So what we're looking at doing is we're looking at tracking these expenses. Again, whether it's fixed or variable, as I said, fixed could sometimes be variable, so we don't want to discount them as well. But we're going to track what's basically going out the door. We're going to track our expenses, cash flow going out, and we're going to write it down. We're going to write down everything that we spend for at least the next 30 days, if not more. Some experts may recommend 60, 90 days because it might give you a better average. If you have a fluky month, you do it for 30 days and you have a fluky month where you have more going out the door than what you normally would have, 60 or 90 days might give you a better idea. Maybe not, maybe 30 is all you need. But so for at least 30 days, we're going to keep track of everything that's basically going out the door in the form of expenses, no matter what it is. Say I give the kids or the grandkids a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. I want to write that down. I want to write that down. Maybe you go out. I'm on the road. I'm in sales. I'm on the road a lot, and I'm a gum chewer. I love chewing gum. I'm a gumaholic. And I stop here for a pack of gum. I stop there for a pack of gum. I want to write that down. I want everything that goes out the door. Of course, the electric bill, the food. We're keeping track of everything. We're writing everything down that goes out the door. And we're going to do this for two reasons. First of all, I think at least some of us out there, maybe more than some of us, might think we do have more coming in than what's going out. And by tracking everything that's going out the door for at least 30 days or more, we may find that it's not the case. We may find that we may have, on average, we may have more going out the door every month than what's coming in. And even if it's only $30 to $50 a month, if we're spending $30 to $50 a month more every month than what we're making, what we're bringing in, what's coming into the house, you can see where that's headed. We're and that might be the worst kind, because we don't even realize it's that small. We don't even realize that we're going further and further and further into debt. And at what point is there the point of no return, so to speak? So that's one thing that's going to tell us. For a lot of us, it's probably going to tell us that we're living paycheck to paycheck. Every dollar that's coming in, there's a dollar going out, and in that case, we want to change that as well. Because we don't have any additional funds. We need to create those additional funds to pay up to set aside up front for those long-term goals we're looking to set funds aside for, pay for, whatever you want to call it. So the other reason we keep track of everything is we may be surprised at how much we're spending and what we're spending that money on. That pocket money we give the kids or the grandkids every month, couple bucks here, couple bucks there. You keep track of that, and basically here's a scenario. Not to say that's every case, obviously. I keep track of the money that I'm giving, the pocket money, the spending money I'm giving the kids every month, or the grandkids, and I realize I'm giving them both $60 a month. $120 a month I'm handing over them, not realizing I'm giving them that much. Oh my God, look at what I'm giving the kids. Maybe I should cut back on that. Maybe I should do something about it. And that's the other thing. Excuse me. That's the other thing with this, with utilizing the spending tracker over a period of time. You start to already formulate where can I start cutting back, and rather than cutting back, I like to use the word swapping out. Maybe with the allowance, with the pocket money, we are cutting back, but in situations where you could swap out and get the same bang for the same buck, that's what I like to talk about. Where can I get the same bang for less buck and free up additional money that way? And here's the example I use with that. I'll go back to the chewing gum, right? I keep track of my chewing gum, and maybe it's the same with the spending money I give the kids or the grandkids. I'm out picking up a pack of gum here, pack of gum there. I'm going through gum left and right every day when I'm out on the road, because I need a piece of gum in my mouth all the time, and I find out I'm spending $60 a month on gum. Oh my God, I'm spending $60 a month on packs of gum. What can I do about this? Well, gee, I go into the grocery store or the retail store, I see that 10 pack of the gum that I like, and 10 in a pack, and it's much cheaper than buying those individual packs. And also, now that I think about it, when I go to the wholesale club, I see cases of my gum in there, and the cases are $40 each, and there's enough gum in those cases. I probably have enough gum for 2 months. And so just by swapping out, rather than buying individual packs, I'm buying a case or two cases at the wholesale club. Just by swapping out, chewing the same amount of gum, I've just cut that down from $60 a month to $20 a month. I've freed up another $40. So we're using these spending trackers. We're tracking this, and again, it's telling us what we're spending money on, how much we're spending money on, and maybe most importantly, what we like to call those spending leaks. Things we're spending money on, we don't even realize it. We don't even think about it. That if we were to cut it out, we wouldn't even miss it, and we'd free up some additional funds that way. And I'm going to use two real life situations here. you know, I had magazine subscriptions. I think it was like five, six. I think it was six magazine subscriptions that I was getting, different magazines that I was getting, and they were all costing anywhere from 50, 55, 60, $65 a year for these subscriptions. And I realized if you spread it out over 12 months, I was spending about $25 a month on these magazine subscriptions. Well, I realized for the last 5 or 6 years, I wasn't even reading them anymore. They weren't even coming out of the plastic bag. I was reading everything online. At some point, I was reading everything online. Everything that I could have gotten from these magazines, I was getting instantly, right at hand online. Wasn't even opening the magazines anymore. And I'm doing my spending, my spending tracker, and realizing, my God, I'm spending that. So I eliminated those magazine subscriptions, and I freed up, on average, like I said, about $25 a month by eliminating those magazine subscriptions. Same thing with these cable channels and these internet channels that I had that I wasn't watching. I realized I wasn't even, maybe once in a blue moon, and I thought if I cut them out, I wouldn't even miss them. And I think it freed up another 20, 25, $30 a month, $40 a month. So by eliminating those two things that I didn't even miss, I freed up some additional funds that way. So that's another thing that we're looking at with that. So we're using that to track everything. We're writing it down, and we're already starting to assign budgeting categories. We're assigning a budgeting category, and we're already looking at formulating the actual spending plan itself, or the budget itself. So we now know, at this point, we now know where we're at, where we want to get to. And so we're going to record income, and we're going to assign spending allotments. And there's three forms that I have available, that I'm going to make available to Natalie Kaplan with the library, that you can use to put together your spending plan. Financial goals worksheet, two examples of spending trackers, and two examples of the spending plan or the budget itself. So this is what we're doing. We're going to utilize something to do this. It could be the handouts that I have. You could go online. You could go to the internet and find your own handouts. I went to the internet. I found some examples of that I use as handouts that were good examples. But there's a number of others out there that you could go online, print out, make copies of, and use. You could do it electronic software. You use some type of software. You could create your own spreadsheets, create your own forms electronically online that way, creating your own spreadsheets. I'm a simple person with simple needs. I live by myself, so I don't have a lot coming and going. Very easy for me to track everything. What I use is the old-fashioned pen and paper, notepad and big notepad and paper, and that's how I track mine, or I do mine on a monthly basis. There's even companies out there that we can hire to create a spending plan, aka budget, for us, and help us to stay on track with those spending plans. Making sure that we're staying on track with the spending plan that they help us create. Now, the ironic thing there is that, of course, they're not doing it for free. We need to pay them for this service, probably a monthly fee, if they're going to help us stay on track. So that's something else that we have to add to our spending plan. But so a number of different ways that we can do it. As the old Nike ad says, we just do it. We just need to do it. Get started somehow doing it to get us on track with the spending plan. So we're creating the plan. We're going to list all monthly expenses, and it's recommended. You don't have to do it. Recommended that whether we create our own plan, we use a handout, we find something on the internet, that we use a form that has a budgeted column and an actual column. And we're going to list all the we're going to list all with what's coming in, but we're going to list all the monthly expenses that are going out. And we're going to use the information from our spending tracker, and we're going to plan where all that money is going to go and how much. On paper, we're going to plan where all that money is going to go to. The gum. I mentioned before, the gumaholic, and he realizes if he goes and gets a case of this gum at his favorite wholesale club, he could get a case of it for $40. It would last him 2 months. It would cost him $20 a month versus buying individual packs at $60 a month. So he's going to budget $20 a month. He just freed up $40 that could be used elsewhere. One of his towards one of his financial goals. The pocket money, the spending money for the kids. We decide, husband and wife decide, honey, we don't want to cut them out. We want to give them something. How about if we cut them down to $40 a month? And what we'll do is we'll give them the money at the beginning of the month. Maybe we could get them involved with our spending plan, show them what we're doing, why we're doing it, and we could help them create their own spending plan, so that they budget their money over that $40 they get over the course of the month. So they have enough to cover them for the month, and then the beginning of the next month we give them each another $40. That way we can cut back a little bit on what we're handing them, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there. So we just freed up another $40 that we could use for our financial goals. The heat and the air. The couple that decide to turn the heat down 5 degrees in the wintertime. Maybe they decide to turn the heat down 5 degrees in the wintertime and turn the air up 5 degrees in the summertime. And factored over 12 months, they realize they're going to cut their bill down from 200. Maybe everything is on electric in their house, and they cut their electric bill down from $200 a month to $150 a month. So they're going to budget $150 a month. They just freed up another $50. And we're doing this for everything that we're going down. Entertainment. Maybe the husband and wife and the kids, they like to, every Saturday they like to do something. Go out for a meal someplace and then do something fun and active. They go play miniature golf. They go to a movie. Hey, honey, how about if we do that? We do the family the Saturday night out every other week, and maybe in the weeks in between we can do something that's little to no cost. Maybe we go on the off weekends, we go for a bike ride and pack our own picnic. We go for a nice long bike ride someplace and pack a picnic lunch and have a picnic. Or maybe on other days we stay at home, we all cook together as if we make something fun, tacos or burgers as a family. We have a meal together, and then we sit down in front of the TV and one of those movie channels that we're paying monthly for, and we watch a movie or two, make our own homemade popcorn, and that way we're only going out every other week and spending money, and we cut back. And I figured, we're spending X number of dollars every month. By doing that, we can cut it down to this, and we're going to budget this. And this is you're doing this with food. Same thing with food. Maybe they like to have steak or some type of steak a couple times a week. Maybe they decide to cut that down to once a week and have some more chicken or fish, something a little more cost effective. Doing something to bring that food bill down. And we're doing that with everything that we do. Budget, putting in budgeted amounts that we're going to spend, and as we're doing that, freeing up. Hey, if we do this, we budget this amount, we just freed up X number of dollars that can be put towards those financial goals we're looking to set. All right, so if we use a budgeted column and an actual column. Budgeted column, we put in the beginning of the month, we put down what we're looking to spend each month on everything. We put in our budgeted amount. If we use an actual column, which is recommended, at the end of the month, we can write down what we actually spent and see how we did. Did we go over? In some cases, did we go under? Did we end up giving the kids a couple extra dollars anyway during the month, and we were still giving them $60 a month? In that case, we can decide, what are we going to do? Just continue doing that, or do we need to stick to our guns and stick to that budgeted amount? Um, maybe I like to have coffees out, and every day I like to have that coffee out every day. My wife and I both like to have our coffee out every day, and it's costing us $120 a month for that coffee, going to our fancy coffee shop. Could we cut back on that? Could we cut back, and maybe rather than going to the fancy coffee shop, go to the convenience store? Maybe the coffee isn't quite as good, but maybe it's good enough at a lower price. We can save some money that way by swapping out rather than cutting back, or whatever we do. So we do that, and we budget, rather than $120 a month, we're budgeting $60 a month. And maybe at the end of the month we realize we didn't even do that. We made more coffees at home. We didn't go out as much. Maybe we went out once or twice a week to treat ourselves, and we ended up spending $30 a month rather than 60. Hey, let's re-budget to maybe $40. We can pad it a little bit, lower it so we can re-budget. We just freed up another 20. So you're doing that as you're going down and filling in that actual column. You're seeing how we're doing and making sure we stick to the budget, or in some cases, maybe rebudgeting and maybe even freeing up some additional funds that way. All right. So sometimes income and debt don't balance. What can you do? We talked mainly about cutting back, although I prefer talking about swapping out, to get the better bang for the same buck, or I'm sorry, the same bang for less buck. That's what I wanted to say. But we could also look at increasing what's coming in. If husband and wife both work a full-time job, but one of them maybe doesn't have any hobbies and has some free time, there's something they'd really like to do, and if they can get paid for it, they'll do it part-time. One of us goes out and gets a part-time job, and we bring additional funds in that way to cover those financial goals. Renting a room, we take a look at ways that we can bring additional income in. By the way, increase, if we invest some of that, I've talked about long-term retirement, but if we take some of those funds and invest it in some type of investment, in some type of investment account that might get us 7 or 8% interest, and then that compound interest, we start making our money working for us, and we can earn some additional funds that way. That's what people with money, of course, again, that's millionaires. How do you think they got so many millions? People that investing their money and earning compound interest rather than paying compound interest, and they have their money working for them, and they make some additional funds that way through investment. So different ways that we can increase what's coming in versus what's going out. And of course, we can reduce, or like I said, swap out, same bang for less buck on different things. We've already used the example for the entertainment. You know, we like to go out every week. Maybe if it's a husband and wife, maybe they like to go out a couple times a week. Maybe we can cut at least one of those nights out to save, cut back on what we're spending, and have some additional funds. Looking at different clothes. Hey, could we go down to the thrift store every so often? Maybe you want to buy the kids some new things, but could we go down to the thrift store? How many times I go to a thrift store and I still see tags on clothes hanging there. People get brand new clothes and they don't even wear them; they give them away. So we take a look at how we could cut back, swap out to free up those additional funds. Food is a good example. I've already mentioned swapping out the steaks for the chicken and fish, and eating healthier that way. But food is a good example. And another example I use with food is frozen fruits and vegetables versus fresh. I read all the time, I see all the time about how not only are frozen fruits and vegetables generally healthier, I'm sorry, cheaper than fresh fruits and vegetables, but they're generally healthier as well. Frozen fruits and vegetables, they get picked, they get flash frozen, and they should pretty much stay frozen until we get them home. We take them out of the freezer, we cook them and eat them. And by flash freezing, it locks in all those vitamins and minerals, and then we have the benefit of all those vitamins and minerals once we cook it. Fresh fruits and vegetables, from what I keep hearing, the longer they sit around, this warehouse, that warehouse, the grocery store, our refrigerator, the longer they sit around, the more they lose vitamins and nutrients. So by switching to more frozen fruits and vegetables than fresh, not only could we save some money that way, but also, maybe eat a little healthier, when it comes to fruits and vegetables. So we take a look at what we could cut back or what we could swap out to free up those additional funds. Now, we need the basics: food, shelter, clothing, transportation. We do need to have them. We don't want to cut out, again, I don't want to use the scenario of having, eating baked hot dogs and baked beans 4 or 5 times a week to cut back. We need the basics. But for a lot of us, this is what gets us into trouble. Those wants. Wants go beyond the basics and increase our quality of life. People sometimes get out of hand with that, right? We want this, we want that. This is where I talk about the keeping up, and again, the finger quotes, the keeping up with the Joneses A lot of people, the Joneses down the street just bought brand new, top of the line, all the bells and whistles, matching SUVs. We feel we have to go out and do the same thing. The Joneses bought a bigger and grander house. We feel we have to buy a bigger and grander house. They start going out to all these nice four or 5 star restaurants. They go on these luxurious vacations. We feel we have to follow suit. For all we know, the Joneses may be one paycheck away, and probably are, by the way, but maybe one paycheck away from total financial ruin. So far in debt, or, again, one thing, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and one thing happens, one of them loses their job or whatever, and there it goes. One paycheck away from total financial ruin. And if we're following suit, we're going down the same path. We don't have to do that. We don't have to keep up with the Joneses. Maybe we keep up with the Warren Buffetts in life. People who, or those millionaires out there. One financial guru, because you read, you watch these videos, and several times I've they've talked about millionaires that you wouldn't even know are millionaires. They don't live in fancy houses. They don't drive fancy cars. You wouldn't even know they were millionaires, but they're millionaires or multimillionaires. Because they're not out spending their money. They don't have to have this. They don't have to have this, that. They're taking a good chunk of their money, and they're making that money work for them. I'm also going to mention a quote that I use in another presentation I do called START. It's a quote from Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein says, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." And I think we know what he means by that. Would we rather earn compound interest or pay it? And unfortunately, there's a lot of us out there that are paying more in compound interest than what we're earning, because we have to have this, we have to have that, we put it on the card, we take a loan, and we just go deeper and deeper into debt. We need to turn that around. This is a big part of doing that. Where can we cut back? Where can we swap out that we can start putting those funds aside to cover those SMART goals, and maybe invest some of that to with the compound interest, have our money working for us, earning compound interest rather than paying it. This is the coffee analogy I talked about. If you skip spending $4 a day on a coffee and a donut, now in this day and age, probably $4 a day just for the coffee at the fancy coffee shop. But if we go out every day, we're spending at $4 if we use that as the mark, we're spending $120 a month. And again, this is where, I'm a big coffee drinker. It's one of the reasons I use as an example, and this is where I prefer to swap out as opposed to cutting back, because if I go from the fancy coffee shop to the convenience store and get the comparable size, I might save myself half that money. $2 versus $4. And if I can do that, I can go out every day for my coffee or my cappuccino, my latte, whatever they have at the convenience store, and I can still go out every day. But by going there rather than someplace that's more expensive, I just cut that in half from $120 to $60 a month. I just freed up an additional $60 every month. And we can kind of make a game out of this. It's kind of like a fun game. How can I save? How can I swap and save? Could the family could we rather than going to the shore every year during the summer at the height of the season at the highest cost, could we go in the elbow season and save some money that way? We're still spending some time down at the shore, but we're getting again better, more bang for less buck, so to speak. So we take a look at all these different things, swapping out again as opposed to cutting back to free up those additional funds. We talked about an emergency fund. An emergency savings fund can help you be prepared for the unexpected. And this should be one of the SMART goals. If we don't have an emergency fund set up, a short-term fund or emergency fund, basically the same thing, we need to make that one of our goals. Experts say that we should have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a short-term slash emergency fund to pay for those emergencies that will come up. Not if they come up, when they come up. We have those funds available. So we don't have to go deeper into debt to pay for those emergencies or dip into our retirement, our long-term retirement fund to pay for those emergencies. We have those funds available. So at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Shouldn't be difficult to figure out. You accumulate what's going out the door, and I would imagine there are people out there who realize that if they have one, they may not have enough, and if they don't, of course, that's one of the things that we need to work on as one of our goals, one of our SMART goals, to build up a nice, healthy emergency fund. By the way, some experts say at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, but some experts say that as much as 12 months worth of expenses. But at the very least, 3 to 6 months. So that needs to be a consideration. As you progress and make your spending plan a habit, we want to consider funding that emergency account, other SMART goals like our long-term retirement. And again, especially if we have time on our side, we don't need to set much aside. And if we work for an employer that has a retirement plan, that money can be taken out of our paycheck pre-tax, and put aside. If that money is taken out before we even get our check to budget with, we've already done that part of it. We've already set those funds aside. And even if it's 20, again, especially if we have time on our side, even if it's $20 or $30 only $20 or $30 a paycheck, it adds up over time. But and then other SMART goals that we're looking to set funds aside for, and reevaluating our priorities. Again, do we, like the Joneses down the street, do we really have to have this? Do we really have to have that? Do we really have to have that brand new sports car or SUV, or can we make do with a lower priced model and or something that's a couple years old? Now, right now, as we all know, no matter what car you purchase, they want a premium dollar for it. But at some point, I think that should go back to a whatever the normal is. And that could be a consideration, just like Warren Buffett does. But reevaluating our priorities. All right. And finally, a spending plan isn't worth much if you don't go back and review it. Priorities and goals change. Make sure you monitor and adjust as needed. Our spending plans are going to ebb and flow, right? Things are going to come off. Things are going to get put on. Um, you know, I set aside funds over the next 6 months for that new smartphone. I get the smartphone. I don't need to set the funds aside anymore, so that comes off of my spending plan. Maybe I get a raise at my job, an unexpected raise, and now I'm making another $100 a month on in my paycheck. So now I have another $100 a month to use. Am I just going to blow it, or do I use that additional $100 to fund those different SMART goals, or maybe add more to those different SMART goals that I have set up? But the things are going to come and go. These things are going to ebb and flow, and also after a while we might not need. Maybe to start we do this on a monthly basis. But I think after a while, we may be able to switch to maybe every other month, and then maybe ultimately like every quarter. I'm at that point now myself. I do it like roughly every quarter, just to make sure that I'm staying on track. Again, with what's coming and what's going, with those funds in between that I need to set aside for the SMART goals that I'm looking to achieve. All right. So with that, we will end the presentation with my contact information. If anybody has any questions, they looking for information, they can certainly reach out to me. My telephone number. Also, I don't have it on the presentation, but we have an in-house staff. Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities, we regulate those industries in the Commonwealth. If anyone ever has a question, a problem, an issue, a complaint as it relates to those industries, they can reach out to us. We have an in-house staff that will take phone calls Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Normal business hours. You call during those days and times, you should get a live voice answering the phone. If you don't get a live voice answering the phone, you leave a message and somebody will get back to you within 24 business hours. Again, on top of that, it went, and the toll-free number, 1-800-PA-BANKS. 1-800-PA-BANKS is the toll-free number to reach us, or 800-722-2657. Again, also my contact information is my telephone number and our website. You can also contact us through our website at dobbs.pa.gov. Check out our website. We have a lot of good information for consumers related to what we regulate. Information, as I like to call it, on saving, investing, and maybe most importantly, protecting what we save and invest. So with that, I will end the presentation and say thank you for joining.